Being a child in the 1980s, I grew up with the show called American Gladiators. In the context of this show, you have weekend warrior athlete types pitted against each other, competing in various extreme events, battling American gladiators, which are very big, muscular, scary-looking people who just want to stop you from completing your event. And I loved the show in the 1980s. It was a great show. There was a lot of spandex involved, but the show in itself was great. It was a competitor show, and it was physical and entertaining, and I absolutely loved it. But the show went away, and fast forward now, present day, or actually about 2008, the show made a comeback, and I found out about it, and I just said, you know what, I want to live out this childhood dream. I was such a big fan of the show in the 80s when I was just a kid, and now the opportunity has come up to audition and be a competitor on the show. So I initially went to tryouts for the show in Orlando, Florida at Universal Studios, where they made us do a series of exercises, as many pull-ups as you can do, some sprints, and some various footwork drills. And then as soon as the events were over, they immediately put you in front of the camera to see how you interviewed after being physically exerted. So there were thousands of people at this audition, and I did very well in the physical portion of the tryouts. And then as soon as they put me on camera, they asked me, well, why would America want to watch you? You know, we have a lot of athletes out here, a lot of people who are physically able to compete on the show, but why would America want to watch you? And I told the cameraman and the interviewer at the time, I said, why wouldn't America want to watch me? Are you kidding me? So I guess that was the proper response, because I got a call back for the next round of auditions. And I went through a series of those. And eventually, the final audition was a 2-week boot camp out in LA. And that was probably, out of this whole experience of going through auditions and being on the show, that 2-week boot camp was probably my most favorite part of the experience, because during this boot camp, NBC hired a stunt crew to set up at the stadium in LA, near the Staples Center. The whole parking lot was filled with various obstacles. So there were all the obstacles there, all the events were set up during this 2-week boot camp where you would run through it. So for example, one of my favorite obstacles on the show was called Vertigo. And on Vertigo, you had 50-foot sway poles, and these are very, very, they're not wide, circumference-wise poles that as you climb up them, they become very unstable and they start to sway. So one of the events, which this was my favorite event, you had to climb up this pole, and as you got higher on the pole, it started swaying in the breeze, and that was very scary because you're 50 feet up in the air. And then once you got to the top, there was like this 3-foot platform which you had to grab onto and then put your body on top of, and then start swaying side to side, and then reach for the next pole, which was about 10 feet away, and then you would have to traverse about 5 poles and get to the end safely without plummeting to your death. You were harnessed in, but that fact that, you're up there 50 feet up in the air on a 3-foot platform, trying to jump to the next platform, swaying back and forth in the air, was really scary. There were lots of different events that we got to do, and we had to physically compete against each other for a spot on the show. One of the interesting things that they did with the show when they brought it back was they made it more Hollywood. So they wanted it, to be more up-to-date in regards to, this isn't just a straight sportsman show. There's this entertainment factor in it as well. So the way that the producers on that show angled me was that I'm the single mom, working 2 jobs, making her way through college, and is now living her childhood dream and, being a role model to her daughter, which, the basis of that was all very true, but they definitely glammed that up. So after that final 2-week boot camp, I got a call back saying that I was picked to be a competitor on the show. So basically, I flew back out to LA for filming of the show. And during the filming of the show, we were pitted up against each other, and I had to compete on national television. And it was just an amazing experience. It was unscripted, and it was totally mind-blowing that I was doing events that there was no other way that I'd be able to ever do these things. So I did end up winning my episode, which was the season premiere opener for the season, and it was very intense because the last event that they put you into is called the Eliminator, which is an obstacle course. Now, this obstacle course was the most extreme thing that I've done in regards to, well, besides boxing and fighting, one of the most extreme things that I've ever done physically. So you start off on a floating platform in a pool of water. And then all of a sudden, you're standing there and they say 3, 2, 1, go. And then there's a huge wall of fire. A 50-foot wall of fire just appears in front of you. And you have to jump into the pool of water and swim underneath the fire. So you swim under the fire, and as you come up for air, there's a 100-foot cargo net awaiting you. So you climbed up this cargo net after being, under the water, hoping to come up and not get burned. And on top of that, my competitor, who I was running against, actually had a 5-second head start on me. However, at the end of the cargo net, I said, peace out, I'll see you at the finish line. Came across towards the finish line, and the last obstacle that we had to traverse before the finish line was a treadmill that was on almost a 90-degree angle going backwards at like 20 miles an hour. So this was the most dramatic part of the show because it took us about 15 minutes for us to actually get up it. So I'm standing at the base of this backwards hell treadmill, attempting to get up it over and over and over again, and that lead that I had on my competitor, she came up right behind me, and my heart just sank because at this point in time, every energy system was depleted in my body, and once again, I was left feeling numb from my fingertips to my toes. I felt like, not only numb, I felt like my whole body was made out of lead. My body felt heavy, I couldn't breathe, I was near emotional exhaustion because at a certain point, your body is just, there's nothing left to give except the sheer will to finish. So I saw her approaching from behind me, and as she ran up the treadmill like a deer, my heart sank. She got to the very top of that treadmill and slipped and fell. And that was awesome for me because she came tumbling back down that treadmill, and we just looked at each other, and we both made attempts, numerous attempts, one right after the other, to get up that treadmill. And it was so frustrating. I would get up to the top of the treadmill and slip. She would get up to the top of the treadmill and slip. And this went on for 15 minutes. Finally, she attempted to go up the treadmill and something happened, but she was done. So I just looked over at her and I gave it one last go, and I was like, there has to be a winner. I have to finish this no matter how bad I feel. And this was being, televised, and it was like, I have to finish this. This is going to be on national TV. There's no way that I'm not gonna finish this. And on top of that, my family's sitting in the audience, and I don't want to disappoint anyone. This is my childhood dream, and I'm going to live it through. So on my very last attempt, I don't think I had anything left in me. I got up to the treadmill, and at the top of the treadmill, there was a rope that you could climb onto. So I grabbed that rope, and my body went limp, and I laid there holding onto the rope as the rubber treadmill was still running underneath me, and I still have a scar on my arm from that day where that treadmill just ripped off all the skin on my arm. But I wasn't going to let go of that damn rope. There was no way. I was at the top of the treadmill, and I had made it, and I was bloody. I don't know what happened to the competitor behind me, but I just pulled myself up, brought myself up to my feet, got to the top of the treadmill, and at the top of the treadmill was a rope that was hanging, so you had to grab onto the rope and swing out 20 feet and then drop into a pool of water. So I did that, and as soon as I came up, I couldn't swim. My body was so depleted at that point that I couldn't even tread water. So the scuba people, who were the safety people in the water, had to come and rescue me, which you did not see on national TV. After they took me out of the pool, I just laid down on the ground. The medics attended to me, but you know what? It was the best feeling ever because A, I won, and winning is great, and 2, it was living a childhood dream, and it was something that I always wanted to do. And that's my American Gladiator story, and that's how it all came about, from being a kid kid in the 80s thinking, oh wow, that would be really cool, to actually living it out. So that's my American Gladiators experience, and I'm proud to say that I was the season premiere winner.